Hang on, people. Well, these cops shoot a guy with a couple knives. I mean, of course it's going to be justified. I think cops did probably okay job. The community, the two guys they got talking on this video just seems like pink panty guys. But anyway, let's listen to this. Pretty short video.
Police Department. This critical incident community briefing will provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting, evidence, and police procedures.
So this guy's going to tell you what the next guy's going to tell you.
Procedures related to this case. Mesa Police Department conducts thorough investigations, view numerous hours. These investigations can often take months to be analyzed and reviewed with our policy and the law. Video we will be sharing our office video obtained as part of this. The images and information can be graphic, disturbing, and difficult to watch, and the video may contain strong language. Viewer discretion is strongly advised, especially for young children and sensitive viewers.
When he said sensitive viewers, I went, shit, why didn't you just say all YouTube viewers? Because I ain't never seen a bunch of crybabies like I have on freaking YouTube, and YouTube coddles them and runs their rescue every time they cry. Oh, let me protect you. I'm your savior. I'm YouTube community standards. If you're offended, tell us, and we'll impose our might and our strong ability to censor anybody that offends one of our protected people that we like. But you can offend other people all the hell you want. That ain't no problem. You can talk smack about Trump all day long. No problem. You can talk about killing and hanging Trump. No problem. But you talk about anything else that offends the left liberal rainbow crew, then you're in trouble.
I'm Sergeant Jason Troff. The following critical incident.
Sergeant Jason Troff wears pink panties. That's just a guess. I'm taking a swag here.
Occurred on April 22nd, 2020 in an apartment complex at 1120 South Sycamore in Mesa. Just after 8 o'clock in the morning, calls came into 911 reporting a man.
This guy almost talks like he's condescending. I mean, to me, this guy has no credit. He may be the greatest cop in the world. Somebody will know him and say, man, you got this guy wrong. I'm just telling you, this seems such like a fake PR. He is being so sensitive, and his voice is, I really want to let you know. And I mean, I'm just like, dude, how the hell did you make Sergeant out on the streets talking like that? But anyway, this guy has no credibility to me, and he's just pumping out the company line, and he's trying to be this sensitive, kind, loving, caring cop that people want to see, but people just want to see it, even if it's a lie. I think it's BS, but whatever.
Man walking around the complex carrying 2 knives and screaming.
911 emergency.
The damn caller sounds like she's on drugs, and she's reporting a guy on drugs.
I live at the Sycamore Square apartment in Mesa. There's a guy that is running around the common area. I don't know. He could be on some sort of drugs, but the problem is he's yelling out, take your best shot, and he has a knife. And he's kind of, like I said, he's pretty paranoid.
But the problem is he's yelling, take your best shot. And he kind of has a knife, and he's kind of, he's pretty paranoid. And, meanwhile, while I'm talking to you, he stabbed 14 people. What the hell kind of caller is this?
The caller described the suspect as wearing all black and told the operator that the man was approaching the landscaper.
He's now running around. The maintenance worker's up at the pool, and he's now confronting the maintenance worker.
Is he threatening with the knife?
No, he's running around yelling, take your best shot with a freaking knife, because he's not threatening, dispatcher. He's trying to ask anybody if they want him to spread their butter on their bread for him. That's why he's running around with freaking knives. Are you kidding me?
Did you hear him?
Officers were immediately dispatched to the scene.
Officers were immediately... Look, either Mesa PD has 4,000 cops and they have 15 in this neighborhood, or they were not immediately dispatched. This is propaganda. You don't have 8 cops suddenly appear like in the movies on a scene. That's not immediately dispatched. These cops staged and waited and left the citizens to fend for themselves while they got all these cops here. Okay? That's my swag.
Sycamore Shadows Apartments in the common area. There's a male subject outside with a 423 yelling for someone to take their best shot.
Look at all these cops. rapidly responding. Yeah, all these cops just happen to be in the area. Every one of these cops just appeared. It's like we're on Star Trek and they got beamed down.
No known injuries.
Multiple officers arrived on scene within minutes.
Okay. At least this guy has his freaking
And
hand on his gun when he's walking up. At least he's got his hand on his gun.
And searching the common areas of the apartment complex for the suspect. A sergeant and an officer rounded a corner of an apartment building when suddenly the suspect, later identified as 31-year-old Craig Dandy, came around a corner behind them, yelling and running.
This guy talking drives me nuts. I'm sure I drive people nuts by the way I talk because I'm too aggressive in your face. Shut up, you big crybaby. But anyway, this guy just... And they approached the corner, and a person suddenly appeared. And they tried the beanbag because we're sensitive, and we love people with knives, and... Really?
Identified as 31-year-old Craig Dandy, came around a corner behind them, yelling and running directly towards the officers. Both officers observed a large knife with a red handle in the suspect's hand. One officer was able to deploy a less lethal beanbag shotgun. However, Dandy kept advancing on them, and that is when the sergeant fired his duty weapon.
However, Andy kept advancing. Aw, poor Andy.
Dandy fell to the ground just a few feet from the officers as other officers were running to assist.
All right, behind you.
Hey, behind you. So you had cops on this side. Again, he's got his hand on his gun. I'm with this guy. This guy doesn't have his hand on his gun. Maybe his gun's out. I don't know. These cops are like, I don't know, whatever. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 cops here. So this guy did bring a beanbag to the knife. That's not really required. It may be required by policy, but by law, if somebody comes at you with a knife, deadly force is authorized. You do not have to use less than deadly force. I'm not saying he shouldn't have. I'm not saying it's not a good idea to have a beanbag. I'm not saying it's not a good idea to try the beanbag. But you don't want to risk, if you have a beanbag and a gun and you're by yourself, you don't want to try the beanbag because if it doesn't work, you're probably not going to be able to get your gun out and protect yourself and you'll end up dead. But in this case, he had a guy there with lethal force, a gun, so he could try the beanbag. And when you hear the shots, it sounds like the shotgun went off first, and then the guy didn't stop, and that's when you heard the officer open up.
Get that knife out of there.
No, stay back.
So the officer that shot is kind of like trying to figure, his mind's going a mile a minute, of course. You know, when you get stressed out and shit like that, I mean, most cops, it's like they always want to grab the gun or grab the weapon. And I don't know if it's Hollywood or, you know, I mean, there's a certain extent that you want to secure the weapon so the person can't grab it and use it against you. And I agree with that. But sometimes if it's stabilized and it's something like a knife and you've shot the guy and he's on the ground, I mean, before I wouldn't want to move it because I'd want to get pictures on where the knife landed and just mark it. Or maybe I'd have some officer go stand over it and, you know, just straddle it until we got somehow to marking. A lot of times I'd lay down my glove or something next to a piece of evidence on a crime scene. I'd either pull out one of my rubber gloves that I had, or I'd lay it on the ground. I'd say, don't touch that. Sometimes I'd lay my magazine out next to the thing, and cops come by and go, hey, man, somebody lost a magazine. I go, don't touch that. It's by a friggin' piece of evidence. Leave it there. It's marking it. So anything I have, I would have marked when I find evidence so I know where it's at, because when a bunch of officers start showing up and they start kicking and moving, things get moved. Now, not that they couldn't kick my hat or my magazine or my gloves or whatever, but most cops aren't going to start picking up shit unless it's a weapon. So, and usually, you know, if I got time to start marking evidence, the crime scene, you know, securing the crime scene has already started taking place, or it's stabilized enough that I can mark it. I wouldn't be marking evidence in the middle of a freaking crisis where shit's hitting the fan and shots are fired and all that shit. But once it's stabilized enough that I can see evidence and start marking, I would use something like that to mark it. And, you know, if you find yourself in a crime scene or something, you see something, nowadays with a phone, it's just easier to snap a picture of it. Turn your video on and videotape it.
Right now.
So the guy goes, you want to go? And they're like, no, stand back. So he's kind of thinking for a minute. I mean, he wants to get the gun. He wants to catch his breath. He just shot a guy. He's not thinking real clearly. Because he's a sergeant, nobody wants to say, dude, just because you're a sergeant doesn't mean you're not going through fight or flight. You got your adrenaline rush. You got tunnel vision. Relax. We got it. Okay, you were just in a shooting. We know you're the sergeant. We got another sergeant en route. Go ahead and back up, or we'll take it from here. I'm not sure they should have done that like within 5 seconds, but somebody should do that if this guy doesn't snap out of it. Tell he's breathing very hard. Notice his it's blurred out, but you can tell he's taking big breaths. He's trying to get oxygen. His body, all the physiological things that went on. If you go to my thinklikeacop.org and go to the fight or flight page, I've got all the stuff. I did a lot of research, got a lot of justification, a lot of studies on fight or flight. If you read that page, you'll understand why cops do what they do when they're in these critical incidents. So it's not just cops, anybody in a critical shooting, civilian, military, whatever. Why the things that happen. And when you understand that, when it happens to you, you don't feel out of control. You expect it. You know it's going to happen. So it gives you the ability to recover from that and to deal with it better than if it's shocking. Most people, civilians especially, when they get in a shooting, they go through a gun course. They go, they go get trained by freaking ASP or freaking NRA certificate that they can carry a gun, and they think, okay, I'm good to go. Then if they get in a shooting, they're like in shock. And they don't understand why they can't catch their breath. They think they're having a heart attack. They don't understand why their heart rate is so high and they feel dizzy. They don't understand why they start shaking and they think they're going to pass out. And because they don't understand that, it creates more fear, and they're like, oh my God, what's going on? Why am I going to pass out? Why am I having a heart attack? Because they don't understand how fight and flight works. So anyway.
There's a knife right there. There's another knife underneath his head. Everybody glove up.
Both officers.
Okay, so now the cop finally started, he got out of his little tunnel vision a little bit. He caught his breath, and he goes, there's a knife, everybody glove up. He's starting to think, he's starting to take control of the scene, he's kind of snapping out of it. And now Pink Panty Boy comes up and does something here.
Officers told the investigators that the incident occurred within seconds, and they weren't able to engage or negotiate with Dandy because he was advancing on them so quickly.
Oh, this guy should be like the spokesman for all police department. Oh.
The sergeant approached Dandy and kicked out the knife from his hand and away from his reach. Officers quickly requested the Mesa Fire and Medical Department for assistance, but Dandy died at the scene.
Okay, so, look, the shooting's going to be justified. I'm not saying the cops shouldn't have shot him or it was their fault. Guy probably had mental issues, probably on meds or off his meds or on drugs with meds. Probably had contact with him before. They're not showing. They do show a picture of knives, which I think is BS. They don't show the actual knives. They show knives that look like. Watch this.
During the investigation, 2 knives were recovered near the suspect. Here are pictures of what those knives look like.
Here are pictures of what the knives look like, and then right up here in the corner, it's not actual knives. I'm expecting, if you buy right now this Jiu-Jitsu Super Cutter for $9.99, you can have this red handle knife. Why do they show 2 brand new looking knives when they have actual footage of the actual knives that he had? Why? Were they rusty? Did they have blood on them? Did he cut somebody? Did he stab? Why did they show these knives looking all new and pristine, like somehow to make them look larger? To me, this is just fake news BS. This is government trying to sell a story that they really don't need to sell, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll end that there. Argue it out in the comments.